Welcome to The Explainer, where today we're breaking down the new law set to completely reshape India's nuclear energy landscape. It's called the Shanti Act.
Okay, so it all kicks off with this one absolutely massive number, 100 gigawatts. Now that is India's ambitious nuclear power target for the year 2047. We're talking a huge, huge leap from where things stand today, and it's a really key piece of the country's whole Viksit Bharat development plan.
So you gotta ask, right? How on earth is India gonna bridge such a massive energy gap? Well, to really get the answer, we first need to look at the problem the country is facing. You have to understand the scale of it all.
And wow, when you look at the numbers, they really are stark. Right now, India's current nuclear capacity is just a little over 8 gigawatts. I mean, that's just a tiny fraction of its 100-gigawatt goal. And the money? The financial gap is, frankly, even more daunting. We're talking an estimated 15 lakh crore rupees. That's about 180 billion US dollars. There's just no way the public sector can cover that on its own.
You see, for more than 60 years, India's nuclear sector was governed by these two main laws. You had the Atomic Energy Act of '62 and then the Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act of 2010. And together, what they basically did was create a state-run monopoly. This totally blocked any private or foreign companies from getting in on the action.
So to break that deadlock, to finally open the door for all that private investment, the government came up with a landmark piece of legislation. And that, of course, is the Shanti Bill.
Now, Shanti, it's a pretty long name. It stands for the Sustainable Harnessing and Advancement of Nuclear Energy for Transforming India Act. Phew. But what it really does is simple. It gets rid of those two older laws and creates one single, consolidated framework for India's entire civil nuclear sector. And let me tell you, this thing moved fast. It was introduced in the Lok Sabha, that's the lower house of parliament, on December 15, 2025. Just 2 days later, boom, it passed. And it was immediately sent over to the Rajya Sabha, the upper house, for them to look at. Okay, so what does this act actually do? Well, it makes three really fundamental changes. First up, it ends that state monopoly we talked about, finally opening the door to private and even foreign companies. Second, and this one's a big deal, it completely overhauls the liability rules. It shifts all the responsibility onto the plant operator. We're definitely going to dig into that controversial point in just a minute. And third, it gives the regulator, the AERB, some real teeth, making it a statutory body that's directly accountable to Parliament.
So for the very first time, if you're a private or foreign company, there's now a clear three-step process to get into India's nuclear energy market. It's pretty straightforward. You obtain a license, you build and operate the plant, and you have to comply with the rules from that newly empowered regulator. All right, but now we get to the biggest change. And yeah, it's also the most controversial one. It's all about one simple question: who pays when something goes horribly wrong? This right here is the great liability debate at the very heart of the Shanti Act.
So first, let's make sure we're on the same page. What is supplier liability? Basically, it's a legal rule that says the companies who supply all the gear for a nuclear plant, the pumps, the valves, all the critical parts, they can be held partially responsible for damages if their tech is the reason an accident happens. And this was a really important part of that old 2010 law.
Well, the Shanti Act completely removes that. It gets rid of statutory supplier liability, and that is an absolutely crucial change because it means all the legal responsibility for an accident now falls squarely on the shoulders of the plant operator and the operator alone. Now, as you can imagine, this change has drawn some really sharp criticism. Opponents are saying that it completely undermines the polluter pays principle. They argue it weakens accountability for the suppliers, which, raises some serious public safety concerns. And this hits especially hard in a country that has the memory of industrial disasters like the Bhopal gas tragedy.
But what's the government side of the story? Well, their rationale is pretty clear. It's all about attracting foreign investment and technology. They argue that getting rid of supplier liability is absolutely essential to get global companies on board. Why? Because it brings India's laws in line with international standards, like the Vienna Convention, which pretty much everyone else follows. And that convention puts liability only on the operator.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit. What we have here are two very, very different potential futures under this new nuclear framework. It's a classic case of promise versus peril. And this really lays out the two sides of the coin perfectly. On the one hand, you've got the promise: lower costs for capital, getting projects up and running way faster, and getting access to cool new tech like small modular reactors or SMRs. But on the other hand, you've got the peril, at least in the eyes of the critics: weakened accountability for suppliers, serious public safety worries, and the very real risk that if something goes wrong, it's the state,
and ultimately the citizens who will have to bear the cost.
So when you boil it all down, the Shanti Act is a massive bet. It's a bet that carefully regulated private participation is the key to unlocking India's nuclear potential. And this leaves us, and the whole nation really, with one final crucial question. Can India balance its absolutely immense energy ambitions with the equally immense responsibility that comes with nuclear power?